Trial day arrives for Algiers man. This Algiers man called Monsieur Meursault sits motionless for his upcoming trial. The Algiers man is arrested for the direct murder of an unnamed Arab in 1938. Is due to go on trial after a year in the city jail with no bail. During a heated meeting, approximately 1 year earlier, police say the defendant Meursault has fatally assaulted the named man with a shotgun on the beaches of Algiers. The victim was lying on the sand unprovokingly when Meursault approached him from back and fired 5 fatal shots. Magistrate Bob Hartney says, across in his pocket, I tried to get it out of him by talking about religion. He said that Meursault gave no answer when he was questioned about the meaning behind his assault. Later, we've interviewed Robert Pierre, who solemnly said that he did not want to see my mom, nor did he cry once. He left without even paying his last respect at her grave when Meursault was at his mom's funeral. And so all the events leading up to the murder in Meursault's life is alarming a lot of people because it's showing that he's very emotionless. He's very emotionless. And when interviewing Marie Cardona, who is Meursault's lover, she says that she defends her lover when his indifferent manner is brought to question. Marie Cardona defends Meursault and his motives. He is simply not the kind of person to be very expressive, but from what I know of him, his mother had nothing to do with the crime in question. And so this raises the question of whether his motives, his action before the murder actually affects the trial in any way, shape, or form. Many also believe that Meursault is a good man, such as Celeste, who did not agree to show up on camera. He said that I honestly believe that Meursault did not mean to kill a man. However, Celeste did take note that Meursault was never a man with many words. Later, when interviewing Pierre Salamano, Monsieur Meursault is my neighbor, and he did send his mother to a home, but that doesn't mean he isn't a good person. Although they've been neighbors for a while, he did not have much to say about Meursault, which is very interesting. And upcoming, there's a parricide case. In case you want to know what's coming soon, it is coming to Algiers. Don't miss the heart-wrenching story of a family torn apart by a cold-blooded murder.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, today is the start of something new. We are here today to determine whether this man committed murder. We are not here to judge his interpersonal relationships or lack thereof. You will hear from the defense's witnesses, his friends, his lover. They'll paint rosy pictures of a hardworking, normal individual, a productive member of society. But they're biased because they were close to him, as you would be if any of your friends were standing on trial. The witnesses for the prosecution, however, they will paint pictures of a monster, one who was completely devoid of all affection. He had not a care in the world, not even for his own mother. Remember, everyone has an ulterior motive. The information you're receiving, it's all biased, even his own account of the crime. Right here, right now, is important. You're here because you said that you have no serious qualms about sentencing a man to death. It is one thing to say he deserves to die for his crime, and another matter entirely to be the one who sentenced him and seals his fate. Certainly, he made some bad decisions to be here on trial today, but haven't we all? When trying to figure out why he committed this crime, if you think that he did, if you determine through the witnesses' testimony and the facts and the evidence that he did in fact commit this crime, think about what would make you do it. Your decision here, your role here, it's decorous, it's exciting, certainly, more exciting than if you were here on a robbery case. You can't speak about this to the public, though.
Is guilty or not guilty of murder, and whether or not that this event that occurred was premeditated. It's my understanding that on the day this event occurred was a hot day when my client, some friends, and his fiancée were enjoying a relaxing day on the beach when all of a sudden some unwelcome guest, a group of Arab men, came up and a fight broke out between the two groups. After the fighting ceased, my client and the group he was with went back to Meursault's beach house. After the group ate, my client stepped out for some air, which, if you think about it, is pretty reasonable. I mean, his mother just passed away, he just got engaged.
His new job offer, and on top of this all, now he's probably fearing for his life after the fight that just broke out. This would probably make anyone need to step out and catch their breath, don't you think? So Meursault went back down to the beach, where he unexpectedly ran into one of the Arab men again. As he saw this man draw his knife, Meursault did what I think any average person would do. He fired the gun he had with him, which unfortunately resulted in the death of the Arab. Now, some may ask, if he was just getting some air, why would he need a gun? Well, that question seems quite silly when you think about it. I mean, would you feel safe walking around after you were seen with the enemy of a group of Arabs? Neither did my client. He brought this gun for the same reason I think anyone would have in his situation, in case he needed to defend himself.
What my client did was not premeditated. It was simply self-defense. He did what anyone would have done in that situation, but most importantly, he did not break the law. Anything else that happened in his life or any other factors that may come into play in this trial don't matter. This was a simple, one-time situation that was just unlucky that he had to defend himself, but it's a good thing that he did. Otherwise, it would probably be the Arab man on trial for killing Meursault. No question.
Good morning. My name is Emily Brennan, and I am the head prosecutor on this case. It is my pleasure to represent the province of Algeria when trying this defendant. The prosecution this case is about a man who, for no reason whatsoever, attacked and killed a man on the beach. He shot him once to kill him, and then 4 more completely unnecessary times. The prosecution will be calling 5 witnesses in this case. The first, Thomas Perez, the defendant's mother's boyfriend, if you will, at her old age home, who met the defendant on the day of his mother's funeral and was shocked at how emotionless he was and how insensitive he was towards Perez himself during the procession. The next witness will be the director of the old age home, and he will also testify that the defendant is just completely emotionless and feels absolutely nothing over his mother's death. The next witness will be the examining magistrate who was present during the defendant's interrogation, who will testify that the defendant shows absolutely no emotion and remains completely stoic when talking of anything, especially the murder. Next, we will call Meursault, who was present on the day of the murder and is the owner of the confirmed murder weapon, and saw the defendant standing over the Arab man's body with the murder weapon directly after the attack took place. We will also call the defendant himself, Your Honor, if you allow it, to defend himself and possibly try to explain his heinous actions on the day of the murder. Now, the defense may try to argue self-defense, claiming that the defendant was only protecting himself, but tell me, how is it fair to bring a gun to a knife fight? They had been threatened before by the Arab men at knife point. Gun beats knife every time. It was completely unnecessary to go to the great lengths that the defendant did to protect themselves. They may also argue that the defendant is insane, saying that the attack on the Arab man was merely a psychotic episode, a one-time thing. But tell me, if he left the house not knowing that he was going to attack this man, why would he bring a gun? Why would he bring a gun if he just thought, oh, I'll just go for a walk on the beach to clear my head? I'm not going to attack and kill anyone, especially not during a psychotic episode. At the conclusion of this case, we will ask for a verdict of guilty, and when considering his punishment, we ask that you take into consideration that very heinous and unnecessary lengths that he went to during this murder. Thank you.
The defense calls Marie to the stand.
I'd like to object.
On what grounds?
You said we are not here to judge Meursault's relationships, and I believe that being engaged to Meursault, Marie has unfair bias towards the defendant.
Your Honor, Marie knows him best. Why shouldn't
She was also there on the day of the crime.
But she not witnessed the crime.
Overruled.
you, sir?
Yes, I do.
When you first met Meursault about 3.5 years ago at your job, how did he seem? Was he stressed, laid back, on top of things?
He seemed very quiet and kept to himself, but it didn't seem very odd. He just seemed more of the loner type. There was nothing ever that caused me to question that he would ever be someone to come in and act like this for no reason. And the more that I've gotten to know him, I've seen him blossom into more of a friendly person. I can really relate to.
Would you say that before your relationship started, which was after his mother's death, he was more stressed, and then as you two started seeing each other, he got better?
Yes, I felt that when he was with me, he would open up more. I felt like I could really bring out his true self, which was a caring person.
Do you consider yourself to be a passionate person, one that thinks about?
Yes.
So you wouldn't marry someone unless you knew this is the one. I know him very well.
Yes.
Do you believe that Monsieur Meursault would commit such a heinous crime?
No, I do.
Why?
He's a loving person. He may not show it. He's very, restricted about his emotions, but it's there. He's just not open to expressing it.
Did the death of his mother have anything to do with the start of the relationship?
No, his mother's death was just a coincidence that it happened before we met. It had nothing to do with it. He wasn't using me at all to forget about his mother's death.
Thank you.
How long have you been engaged to the defendant?
About 2 years now, I believe.
And who was it that proposed this engagement?
We never really had a formal proposal. We just kind of agreed to propose. Although if I did have to say, I was leaning towards it.
That's rather taboo, don't you think, for a woman proposing marriage?
I don't think so. It's modern times now, 1939.
What was his reaction when you proposed marriage?
It was not a negative reaction.
It was not negative. Would you say it was a very positive reaction? Did he seem excited?
He seemed happy about it, but I wouldn't say as overjoyed as I was. He certainly wasn't disappointed about it.
Prosecution rests.
The defense calls the caretaker. Sir, tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes.
Why do you think that when asked, my client did not want to see his mother's dead body?
When I asked, he didn't really give much of a response.
Is it true that he asked you if you'd like to see her after individual?
Yes.
It is true, for those of you who don't think that he was mourning for his mother, that studies have shown that people that smoke tend to smoke more when they're under stress or when their life has changed significantly, like a job change, or in this case, his mother passed away. Did he continue to smoke?
Yes. He offered me one and I accepted.
Right. So it's my understanding that you attend funerals fairly often.
Yes, I do.
What would you say a normal reaction to someone's mother dying?
A lot of crying.
Did you see any crying from the defendant on the day of the vigil?
None. He showed no emotion.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
When did you first meet the defendant?
Well, when his mother died, he had come to the director's office and
Okay. And were you in charge of planning his mother's vigil and funeral and procession?
I was.
Were his actions and emotions fairly normal, like same as everyone else whose parents pass away?
I would say no, but he seemed very calm that day. Like he didn't cry for his mother like a normal individual would, and he didn't want to see his mother's grave at the end. He paid no respect.
Is that very unusual, or?
Yeah, I think any normal person would definitely want to go see his mother for once.
Did Meursault show any emotions or anything for the overnight vigil?
He did not. Instead, he did smoke marijuana shaker.
Is it unusual for someone to not interact with any of his mother's close friends?
Objection.
Identifying the character of the defendant.
Yes.
He didn't know the people. Why would he?
Wouldn't you like to meet who had become your mother's only friends in the past 3 years after he put her in the old age home? I would certainly like to meet who my mother was hanging out with every day for the 3 years that I could no longer take care of her. I would like to know what her final years were like.
Perhaps it is some distraught.
Overall.
So did he speak with any of the people who attended the vigil?
No, he did not.
No one? He didn't interact at all?
Not with mother's friends.
No further questions.
Did you know Meursault or his mother very well?
Well, his mother had come to me, and she said that he was. I mean, we know that Meursault was her only soulmate for money, but he couldn't support his mother, so she had come to this house.
Do you think that his mother was better off than the Marino?
I definitely think so because Meursault couldn't support her at all, and here she could talk to many friends.
So you mean she could share things like about the old times and things that only these people that she was with would understand?
Right.
Next witness.
Prosecution calls Thomas Perez. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Is it true that you were present on the day of the defendant's mother's procession?
Yes, I was.
Can you tell me how that day went for you?
Well, it was very hot. I got very tired and had to go behind the procession because I couldn't keep up. So I just cut through the countryside in order to keep up.
Did the defendant talk to you at all or try to help you as you struggled in the heat?
No, he did not. I wish he did.
Is it true that at the funeral you passed out from heat exhaustion?
Yes, I did.
Did the defendant come to your aid at all?
He did not.
So, Mr. Perez, how long did you know the defendant's mother?
Around 3 years, that's when she first arrived in the home.
Why did Meursault put her in home?
I believe he was unable to financially support her at where he was.
So did she, like, enjoy her time there?
To my extent, yes, we became very close at the home.
So, is it possible to say that Meursault was a good guy for putting his mom in the home because he could no longer support her?
You could say that was a very considerate idea that he did have.
Different sex.
Recess. Oh, tomorrow.
Okay, so day one of this murder trial ended yesterday, and it was much anticipated by the public, and a lot of stuff happened in the courtroom. And the judge opened by saying, "We are not here to judge his interpersonal relationships," which is like important throughout the trial. And the defense team yesterday, they made some good points. They called Marie to the stand, where she made points saying that she believes he really is a caring person, and she thinks that he doesn't always show his emotions, but they are in fact there. So that is on the defense side. And then the prosecutors were saying that they were going on the side where there's some serious negatives in his personal lifestyle, and the witnesses were saying that he seemed very calm the day of the funeral. He didn't cry. Any normal person would have cried. So everyone's anxious to see how this will turn.
Call your next witness.
All right, I'd like to call Meursault to the stand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Let's start. Alright, so you are the owner of the beach house everyone went to the day of the incident?
Yes, I am.
And so you went for a walk with Mr. Stintz and the defendant, correct?
Correct.
And you were approached by a group of Arabian men?
Yes, 2 of them.
Who do you recall delivering the first blow?
I think it was the Arabs.
All right. Do you know what went down with the fight? Like who was gaining an edge before any weapons were drawn?
I do actually believe we had an edge on them.
So would you say that the blade drawn was more of a last resort?
Yes.
All right. No further questions.
Witness.
Would you mind telling the court who had the problem with it?
I believe Raymond did. He didn't talk much to me about it, but he seemed like he had some knowledge of it.
So my client did not know this man.
Yeah, I wouldn't know, but I don't think
I would like to call Bob Harkavy, the examining magistrate, to the stand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
So, you were examining the defendant after he was put in prison, is that correct?
Yes, I was.
And what did he say to you about what happened?
Well, I asked him to tell me about that day that he murdered somebody, and he nonchalantly told me that he killed an Arab.
How many shots did he say he fired?
So he shot one, and then he took a pause and shot 4 more.
So, if I understand you correctly, he shot the Arabian man, he died, and then he proceeded to fire 4 more shots into his lifeless corpse.
Correct.
Did the defendant show any signs of remorse or guilt for murdering someone in cold blood?
Not at all. I brought out my silver crucifix here and started preaching to him about God, and he didn't even show a sign of anything. He was so tranquil.
No further questions.
So, Mr. Bob Harkavy, did Meursault tell you that the man was dead before he took his final 4 shots?
No, he didn't.
So is it possible to say that Meursault didn't know he was dead?
But he was silent when I was asking him why he shot.
Perhaps he was just in the moment and he was scared. He was trying to protect himself.
Objection, hearsay.
Sustained.
Any questions?
The prosecution would like to call the defendant to the stand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
So, it is my understanding that you persuaded Raymond to give you the gun the day of the incident, correct?
You could say that. I took the gun from Raymond in the means of protection, and he had it.
And so, what were you doing when you saw the Arabian man at the beach?
Walking along the beach.
All right, and so then you proceeded to shoot him 5 times, correct?
Correct.
Why did you hesitate between the first and the last 4 shots?
I don't know.
What did the victim's body do after the first shot?
He appeared to lay there.
Would he appear to be dead?
Perhaps.
And to be correct, you are admitting to killing someone in cold blood.
I'm admitting to killing someone, yes.
Was it in self-defense?
He did have a knife.
Did he come at you with a knife?
We were relatively far away.
So, the knife, he would not have been able to harm you with the knife from this distance.
That's fair.
No further questions.
Just to be clear, it was Raymond that had the problem with the Arabian man, not yourself?
Correct.
Did you know this man, or he had no relevance to your life?
We had never met before.
So you had no motive to kill him?
Other than, the sun. It was awful that day, and I did shoot him.
Would you say that you knew that he was going to be there and you wanted to shoot him? This act was premeditated?
I didn't want to shoot him. It just happened.
Sit down.
Any more witnesses? Proceed.
They were supposed to call Celeste.
The defense forgot to call Celeste as their witness.
Let's do it.
What was your... Alright, the defense calls Celeste to this thing. Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth? Why is it that you said that you don't believe that Meursault planned or would kill him?
Well, I've never seen Meursault do anything bad. He's always paid his bills sometimes. He's never a man of many words. He just seemed like an honest guy.
Can you tell the court your relationship with my friend?
Well, he used to come into my restaurant all the time. We'd have lunch there a couple times a week, and we grew close.
Would you say you were surprised to hear that he wasn't very emotional, or
No, I mean,
at the time of his mother's death?
at the time of his mother's death, yes. Because, I mean, it was his mother. Who doesn't die over his mother's death? I mean, that can shock anybody.
Do you feel that he is the type of man to show a lot of emotion?
No, he never showed a lot of emotion. He didn't speak much, but still, the death of his mother should definitely spark some emotion.
So what would you say your personal relationship with the defendant was?
I mean, we were friends.
It didn't extend much further beyond he was a regular at your restaurant?
No, not much.
So you don't have much insight to his personal affairs?
We don't know much.
Other than he didn't seem to show any emotion over his mother's death?
Correct.
No further questions?
Yes, that's Does the prosecution rest? Let me get the
So, what we have is the defendant, Mr. Meursault, meets up with Mr. Raymond Stintz. And they get pretty close together, hang out. And then so Mr. Meursault gets involved with Mr. Stintz's affairs. They get closer, and then this group of men starts to seemingly threaten Mr. Stintz. And then they have a bit of a scuffle. And then no more than a few hours after this, we have the defendant firing 5 shots into a man on the beach. The man didn't show any signs of attacking.
Objection.
I'm on grounds.
That fact is not true. The Arab man pulled a knife.
But he was too far away to do anything about it.
The fact that he pulled a knife when he saw Meursault is enough to show the
Sustained
fact.
self-defense.
I believe that the defendant said that it was pointless.
Sustained. The jury will disregard.
Anyway, and then at a distance too far away to do harm to the defendant fires 5 shots into him and leaves him dead on the beach.
He's not putting words into another person's mouth. These are his own words. Overruled.
So we believe it was self-defense. If somebody like this man had lost his mother, just had a new job offer, his friend was just stabbed on the beach, obviously he was very stressed. And this is enough to have him completely cut off all emotions. And the fact that he never had emotions beforehand, that doesn't incriminate him. Just because this man was lacking emotion all the time, that doesn't make him a criminal. It's not an incriminating thing. He may have killed the man on the beach. He was fearing for his life.
Objection. He never said he was fearing for his life.
It's heartening to hear the sounds of those who would have come to join me in my final moments. I am not alone here. Handcuffs jingle around my wrists, their cold cutting out the heat of the sun. I glance down at them. The officer who had put them on made sure that they weren't too tight. I thought it kind of him to do that. He wanted me to be comfortable before I died. A nice thought. The crowd grows louder as we approach the platform where the guillotine sits. It's not exactly what I imagined. Smaller, maybe. Less imposing, less devastating. But maybe those assumptions had come to me from the time when I still fought against when I would be no more. I take the first step up the staircase that leads to the machine that has ended countless lives in the past and would undoubtedly take mine. This is a device that feels nothing for those it kills. Just goes through emotions. Feels no regret, no sorrow, nor anger. Maybe I should hate it for that, but I can only embrace it as kin to me. For I have felt nothing in taking a life, and if a machine can end many in the same way, how different are we really? The crowd screams out for blood. My blood. The noise has only grown since I stopped in front of the blade. All eyes are turned towards me, and I can't help but smile. This is what living is it not? Being at the front, in the attention, and having so many come with their companionship, even if that is only composed of hatred. I drink this in, for why shouldn't I? In my last moments I will live, even if the world moves on and forgets my existence, my life. The man who holds my arm asks me to kneel, and I nod, showing my understanding. Getting down on the rough wood is hard on my knees, but in a little bit, this particular discomfort will be gone, so I allow the sensation to flow over me. Since I have accepted my fate, I have been consuming every physical feeling that life has given me, allowing life to take its hold before death closes upon me. My head is covered with a black sack. It blocks out all light and with it all images. The darkness isn't as consuming as it could have been, and the fabric smells clean. It was good of them to wash it before putting it over me. Then someone guides my head into a hole where a clean cut can be made. It's all so considerate of them, making sure that life will be cut short without too much pain. A man's voice rings out, and I can only assume that it's my charges. The noise has come to a stop. Silence rings more than the voice has had. I wonder how long it's been since my head was cut here. Will the blade be cold? Will I feel anything? Will it?
Camus was born in Mondovi, Algeria on November 7, 1913. His father died during World War I before Camus reached the age of 1, and his grandmother raised him with his mother, 2 uncles, and a brother all in one apartment. This apartment had no bathroom, electricity, or running water. With the encouragement of his teacher, Camus was able to receive a scholarship that allowed him to get a secondary school education and help lift him out of poverty. School is an important part of Camus' life. However, he came down with a case of tuberculosis that temporarily postponed his education. This disease caused him to develop a lung condition that affected him and his career for the rest of his life. During his time of illness, Camus went to stay with his uncle and aunt in healthier conditions, and eventually Camus was able to resume his education. Camus continued with his education all the way through college. During this time, he married Simone High, who he would later divorce, and began his search for a career in professional theater and writing. Camus received certificates in philosophy college career. He also co-founded a professional acting company, which allowed him to publish his first play, Revolt in Asturias, based on a worker revolt during the time of the Spanish Civil War. As time went on, Camus was able to further establish himself as a theater professional, journalist, and author. He remarried in 1940 to Francine Farr, and while working as a part-time teacher in a private school, Camus was able to publish his first novel in 1942, The Stranger. This novel, along with a philosophical essay he published the same year, Mythos Sisyphus, are what really set Camus on the path to international recognition as a literary intellectual over the next decade. Both of these works explored Camus' philosophy of the absurd, suicide, and the lack of meaning in life. He established suicide as a serious philosophical question rather than just an action. Camus published his second novel, The Plague, in 1947, which further explored these ideas as the novel described a plague population facing the absurdity and irrationality of life. Around this time is also when Camus took on a position as an editor at Gallimard Publishing. He held this job for the rest of his life. Camus is also known for his later works, The Fall, published in 1956, which questions the idea of morality, and his collection of short stories, Exile and the Kingdom, published in 1957. In 1957, Camus was awarded the Nobel Prize for Literature. Unfortunately, Camus died in a tragic car accident 3 years later at the age of 46. Though Camus' life ultimately came to an end, his works and the philosophical questions they brought to light will live on.
I did Prezi on existentialism and how it influenced literature in the 1940s. And existentialism is basically an idea that one's life is determined through their actions, and it's not based on any morals that were set beforehand. So the way they act isn't seen as good or bad based on these morals. It's based on their actions and their choices throughout their lives. And it doesn't really inflict on others how they act. It's believed by human nature is determined by an individual's choices. There is no higher being, so